We have a number of candidates from the Conservative Party putting themselves forward for to be the next Prime Minister of the UK. Many of them have said that they think that the border is resolvable through various ways, either through a lot of money, a technical solution, a time-limited backstop. What can you do to make sure that the MPs understand what the issues are?
Well, this is fantasy politics. I mean, we are chasing unicorn Brexit at this point, and we have said this over and over again. We already have a racehorse in the UK in terms of our relationship with the EU. We have the benefit of the rebate. We have exemptions from Schengen. We have all sorts of exceptionalisms that allow us to get the best of both worlds. And we are now going to give that up, not for the unicorn that we've been promised, but for a donkey of a deal in terms of the withdrawal agreement. Now, we're saying very clearly, why would anyone give up such a strong relationship with the EU, but one that is so beneficial to the UK, in order to swap it for what will be a much, much weaker position as the third country without any of the influence, but still going to be influenced by the decisions that are being taken in mainland Europe. So look, we don't believe that that's a good idea, but those who think that this doesn't impact in Northern Ireland can say that only because they don't understand Northern Ireland. Those of us who lived and grew up with the backdrop of the Troubles and all of that know just how important the border is. It is not just the line on a map. It is not just about trade. It is also about people and how they see their identity. And the more prominent the border becomes in politics, the more divisive politics becomes. And those who ignore that do so at their peril, because the last thing we need in Northern Ireland is a repolarisation. My election proves that people in Northern Ireland are capable of coming together and working together in their own best interests. That's what they did around Brexit. That's what they did when they elected me. But what we can't have now is it repolarised because the border becomes a significant issue. We can't have a situation where people are not able to trade. I mean, our agri-foods, for example, is organised on an all-island basis. So a product, for example, an added value product around milk will probably involve milk being brought to Northern Ireland for processing, taken south for packaging, brought to the north for shipping. So it goes back and forward across that border multiple times, and there's no way you can do that with added delays. These technical solutions don't exist. If they did, there would be no borders anywhere because every country would use them. If there were technical solutions, you wouldn't have to sit in queues at the border between Canada and the US. It makes no sense. This is grasping at straws by people who don't want to face reality. And the sad thing about Brexit throughout this is that there are two groups of people. There are those who will not face reality and who tell us that Brexit is simple. It's as simple as out means out. And then there are those of us who will face reality, who recognise the complexity of our relationships, who recognise the risks involved in breaking those relationships. And when we start to talk about how complicated it is and how difficult it will be, we're told that's Project Fear, when in fact that's Project Reality. That's what it looks like to break up a relationship which is as interlinked and as deep as the relationship the UK has with the EU after 40 years. So I think there's a lack of realism in UK politics, and what we're getting is sound bites from people chasing a job with no notion as to how they're actually going to do that job at the other end. A classic example of that is Dominic Raab. This was the Brexit secretary. He was the negotiator of the withdrawal agreement. He was there when the backstop was negotiated. He was the person who delivered a deal which he could not himself vote for. We also have Boris Johnson running in the leadership. He actually voted for the withdrawal agreement and yet is now saying that he would take the UK out with no deal. These are not people who are consistent. They're not people who understand the complexities of the issue. They are people who are interested in their party first and the country second. And so I'm really appealing to people who have responsibility for who will be the next Prime Minister, the members of the Conservative Party and others. Listen to the voices from Northern Ireland of business, of industry, of communities in Northern Ireland. Don't be duped by those in Parliament who talk a good game when it comes to Brexit, but actually have very few solutions to the problems that it throws up.